Seamus O'Regan is Canada's Minister of Labour, and Sean Strickland is the Executive Director of Canada's Building Trade Unions, representing 600,000 workers in the construction trades across Canada. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Thanks for taking time to speak with me today. I think our viewers can tell we've caught up with you apart, but in the same room at the conference today. So thanks for making time to speak with me. Minister O'Regan, look, just before we get into some detailed building labour shortage stuff, I want to get our conversation on the construction trades, as I say in a moment. But more broadly, the census figures released today reveal Canada's aging population and the problems that's causing with labour shortages across the country. So more than 1 in 5 Canadians of working age, close to retirement now, an all-time high. It'll have a major ripple effect on the country's economy and labour market. What's your government doing to deal with that train coming down the tracks?
So we've been working a lot with myself and my colleague Carla Qualtrough. I've been working a lot with unions to determine, how do we attract more people in? So I guess the medium long-term play, Peter, will be how do you attract more people into the trades? I'm old enough that I remember we were introduced to them in high school. The opportunity to do metalworking and wood shop, just at least to get a glimmer into it. Now I've gone to some terrific places like the Nova Scotia Trades as a fantastic facility where, as part of the curriculum, kids are able to get through in junior high and high school, and they've got it set up so it's 2 stories high, and it's almost like speed dating. You're speed dating, although with trades, and they at least get an introduction over the course of every student over the course of a few minutes, and they have a mobile unit as well that's able to actually visit high schools around Nova Scotia. So they're tackling it head on. That's the provincial government, federal government, and unions working together to make that happen. That's the medium long-term play. In the short term, how do you make sure that you're not punishing people for going to where the work is? So Sean and I, from the get-go, actually from the moment I think I was sworn in, started working on the labor mobility tax deduction.
Right.
And that's up to $4,000 that can go towards those workers, as they travel across the country, as many Newfoundlanders do, to the work. So you got short term, you got medium term, you got long term. But we do have a significant demographic issue in this country on skilled trades.
Just for the record, I benefited from exposures to the trades in high school as well. So we're from that same era.
Exactly.
Mr. Strickland, for years, Minister touched on it. Construction workers have been complaining about the inability to deduct their travel expenses as they move from job to job where they're needed. How big of a difference will this tax deduction of up to $4,000 a year announced in the budget make in terms of these major infrastructure projects and getting those completed, the government's commitment to housing? How significant is this?
Well, this is a major policy development for Canada's building trades unions. And when you talk about labor availability and skilled trade shortages, it's a very complex issue and complex problem. Requires all kinds of different public sector and government interventions and also private sector interventions. And for almost 40 years, our industry has been saying that we're not treated fairly as construction workers in Canada compared to other professionals under the Income Tax Act. And it creates a barrier for workers to travel where the work is. So oftentimes you would have situations where you have a high area of unemployment, and then you have another area where there's a shortage of workers within a province or across provinces. But it was very difficult to encourage that worker to make that travel as a construction worker because they would have to eat their own expenses. And oftentimes, if they were desperate enough and they're running out of employment insurance, they would do that work. They would have to bunk in deplorable conditions.
But is that
for other people? And it created a real barrier for workers to go to where the work is. And so one of the solutions to help with labor shortages is to improve labor mobility.
Right.
And so this would be a tremendous incentive for workers right across Canada to go to where the work is. And we're really thankful to the government and Minister O'Regan for making sure this was included in Budget 2022.
Minister O'Regan, the tax will the tax deduction will certainly help with mobility issues, but the broader shortage of skilled trade workers, how will the tax deduction solve that? Is the solution to have workers move across Canada for the future, or is it to try and encourage more people to go into the trades?
I would say, on the labor mobility tax front, it's something that, Newfoundlanders I would argue had a pivotal role in building the oil industry in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and they did that with great entrepreneurial spirit and daring do, flying across the country. Anybody who's ever flown, by the way, between St. John's and Toronto knows it's the plane's jam-packed with workers on almost any given day, heading either to Toronto for the construction industry and for other areas thereafter, or right on to Fort McMurray or Edmonton, Calgary, Regina, Saskatchewan, Vancouver, throughout the country in order to provide labor and in order to have good jobs, jobs that they are extremely good at. But I think you're right to point out that's short term. I mean, longer term, look, we've spent $84.2 million, or that's what we will spend over the next 4 years in the new budget too, where we're double funding the union training and innovation program. So that's gonna hit. This is a program, a well-established program that we have. We're just and we know it works, so we're putting out more money through it. To build up the ability of unions themselves and the provinces to increase the number of people with skilled trades. But the unions do an extremely good job of it. And one of the pleasures of my role, Peter, in my short tenure so far as Labour Minister, visiting a lot of these training centres throughout the country, and they're really impressive.
Mr. Strickland, what about the transition for workers in skilled trades, in particular in the energy sector? There's been, promise of a so-called just transition plan, and I know the Labour Minister doesn't like the term, and maybe you don't either, but are you satisfied that the federal government has a plan to help workers transition to the jobs of a new, greener economy?
Well, I certainly think we're getting there, and the government is doing all of the right things to make sure that happens. And I was around during the recession of the 80s and 90s, and particularly in Ontario, where we went through a period of deindustrialization and we lost a lot of jobs, and that was not particularly handled very well. And I think that government and members of the department from ESTC and government bureaucrats and the government itself understands we need to do better. The Royal Bank, or the TD Bank, actually issued a report several months ago that indicate in the transition to net zero by 2050, oil and gas sector, we could lose up to 450,000 jobs. And those jobs, a lot of those jobs are building trades,
right? Construction
workers, good middle class paying jobs. And so, how do you manage that loss of jobs as you go through a just transition? You match that up with the Royal Bank report that came out just a little while after that TD report that says, for just transition to invest in the new energy sources of the future, we're going to need to spend $2 trillion in terms of the private sector. So our job and the government's job is that as we transition out of oil and gas, we begin to lose those jobs in oil and gas, we make sure that the new energy sources of the future, hydrogen, small modular reactors, carbon sequestration, wind and solar, all of these different components to create a sustainable energy supply for a modern economy are put into place and keep people working.
All right.
So I differ with the minister a little bit. I don't mind the term just transition. That's been in the labor movement for quite some time. And it really is about, providing justice to workers who, through no fault of their own, may be dislocated and lose a job.
All right, let me
call it something else, whatever you like. But the point is to make sure that no worker gets left behind, and the government are doing the right things to make sure that happens.
Let me hear Minister O'Regan, just in the 30 seconds or so we have left, Minister. You don't like the term just transition, but will the government spell out a plan to support workers and communities and those jobs that will be disappearing?
Yeah, but I think the important thing is this is not something that's going to happen overnight, Peter. And I'm not going to succumb, frankly, to the notion that this is something that is happening and will happen. We'll get that done now by this time next year. This transition is going to be occurring over the next few decades. But the urgent thing that we got to do right now is get emissions down. We got to meet our targets, and we need workers to do that. We are in the middle of a labor shortage. So, trust me when I tell you, right now, one of the biggest things I can do, one of the reasons for my speech here today, was to keep workers, the workers that we have in this business, in this industry, in the oil and gas industry, in the energy industry largely, because we need them. Okay. They're the only ones who know how to lower the emissions and build up the renewables. I don't know how to do it. Most people don't know how to do it. We need workers to do it. I need to retain them in the industry. I got to make sure that we have more workers in this industry. We have a huge job ahead of us, but I'm excited. These are the ones to do it.
All right, we'll leave it at that for today. Seamus O'Regan, Sean Strickland, good of you both to take the time to speak with me today. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.